Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are. This is Greg Oxton with the Consortium for Service Innovation, and this is one of our KCS Adoption and Success web sessions. We will be recording this session, and the topic today is communication effectiveness. And so this is a topic that, we muted everyone because of some background noise. If you have questions, please enter them in the chat window, which is at the bottom of your control panel. And Kelly will be monitoring that. We have three presenters today and talking about their experiences with communication effectiveness. First, to set a little context on the importance of this topic, it's an issue that we've been aware of for some time, and only recently have some of the members started doing some things to really assess the communication effectiveness. So Eriksson, Dell, and Hewlett-Packard will each be sharing their experiences. And at the end of each section, we should have time for a few questions. But if you put your questions in the chat session, I think that will expedite. We have 26 people on the phone. That will expedite the question and answer sections. So an observation we've made over the years in helping our members do KCS is that the benefits that are realized really come in three buckets: operational efficiency, and that happens fairly quickly as people start to use the knowledge base as part of the problem-solving process. It actually improves their productivity, increases their capacity. Then as the knowledge base matures and it becomes available to customers, it greatly improves self-service success. And then the longer-term benefit, but perhaps the biggest, is identifying through patterns and trends in knowledge reuse, areas that can be improved in either your products, services, policies, or processes, and that probably has the biggest impact. All of those benefits, though, are a direct result of how frequently and how well the support analysts capture, structure, reuse, and improve. They're all enabled by that behavior. And so focusing on that behavior, we find that one of the key elements in that is understanding and buy-in. And the three key drivers of understanding and buy-in are leadership, which is largely about communication and changing measurements; coaching, which is about supporting the behavior change, also about promoting understanding and buy-in; and then training and certification, or the licensing model that we've defined within the methodology. It helps validate that people truly do understand why we're doing KCS and what's in it for them. So the frequency and quality with which the support analysts do the solve loop dictates the level of benefit realized. If people don't do it very often or don't do it very well, then the benefits are compromised. And if people don't understand why we're doing KCS or the what's in it for them, they aren't likely to do it very often or very well. So the question we're looking to understand is what's the level of understanding and buy-in from support analysts, managers, and directors across the organization. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Eriksson. And I think Arvid is presenting for Eriksson. So I will make Arvid the presenter. And Eriksson has had a major KCS adoption effort underway for a couple of years and has the additional challenge of dealing with outsource partners and seeking to understand how well the outsource partners understand KCS and how bought in they are. So Eriksson, or Arvid, I believe you're the presenter. Yep, we can see your screen.
Can you see the
yes,
the GoToMeeting box also?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, no, I can just see your screen. Sorry, the GoToMeeting box is my GoToMeeting box.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me, Greg. My name is Arvid Eriksson. I headed up the KCS adoption within Ericsson IT. And today I have Renuka Balasubramanian with me, who is part of the program team and has now taken over the role as manager for the knowledge management function. We're going to give you a insight in the survey we did last year during the summer of 2015, with the main purpose of understand the agent's perception, understanding, and of KCS, and especially this was important for us since we used the train-the-trainer approach in adoption. So we wanted to see how well the message stuck in the agent's understanding. Let's see if I can change slide. Before we go into the survey itself, I'll just explain briefly about the context of where we operate. So we have an IT operations landscape with 6 suppliers, both internal and external. And we also have a service desk, of course, who is the first point of contact for an end user. Within each supplier, we have implemented a set of roles, and they are knowledge manager, lead coach, lead knowledge domain expert, and knowledge domain expert. And due to the magnitude of our implementation, we had to implement the lead coach, both for administrative purposes, but also accountability and flexibility purposes for us as a team in order to be able to handle this implementation. Our governance structure is mainly conducted through the Knowledge Management Council, coach meetings, KDE meetings, and supplier review, where we review the performance on the overall delivery. To the broader audience, we mainly communicate via newsletters, including tips and tricks, and also recognition areas for top performers in each of the supplier organization. We've also done this survey, and we have also launched a quiz with the aim to, it's a set of around 20 questions, and there are some prizes involved as well. We have within Ericsson IT a centralized function for knowledge management, and this has been a very important part of our success, I would say, because it allows us to gain the expertise needed and also have the strong governance that we have of each of the suppliers. I think it's worth mentioning that our overall scope for this KCS adoption was around 2,000 support engineers, so it's quite a big one. And our survey, as I said, it was done 2015. We invited the support agents to participate, and this was important because we wanted to get their perspective on how the KCS methodology had impacted their work. For example, do they see benefits of more effective onboardings, a higher degree of variety in work, and a difference in motivation, and so on. We also wanted to get the unfiltered feedback from the floor directly and not through the different accounts. And we wanted to understand if there was a need to improve our communication about the methodology or parts of the methodology to help them or to help the support engineers in their work. About the survey, some facts. We had 513 respondents, and I consider that to be pretty good, actually. They were representing all of the different service providers, and we had 2 weeks time frame for completion of the survey. And of course, we had to send a few reminders, but it paid off in the end. And now we'll go into the the survey a bit more in detail. We will present some of the questions and some of the responses, and also what we've done about it. So Renuka will take you there and give you a bit more insight into the survey itself.
Sure, Arvid, thank you. And hi, everyone. Arvid, I'm still seeing. Okay, now I see the slide. So yes, so we know that people are the cornerstone of KCS, and it was important for us to understand what's in their minds. And having that in mind, we structured our questions to address 4 main areas. And the first one is to assess their willingness to share. We wanted to know if they do see value through practices of KCS, and also if they are motivated to contribute towards KCS, because like Arvid explained, given that our IT landscape being so complex, it was important for us to assess these, to see if agents are willing to share among the peers, and also between the tiers, level 1, level 2, and also between the suppliers. So this is key to populate the knowledge database effectively and efficiently and accurately. And the second one is the role understanding, if people understand their role and also how it relates to the business outcome. Because we have seen a situation where many of our articles are left in draft. So it was important for us to know if the publishers or how the publishers perceive the role, and if they see value being a publisher and executing their role. And besides that, in this scope, we also added a question regarding how often they turn to the coaches for feedback or vice versa, because that will give us some insight of how effective the coach structure is within the suppliers. And the third one is the popularity, to know how likely people would recommend KCS to the new joinee, and if also KCS is popular on the floor. And I must say that through this survey, it became the talk of the town, because we sent a lot of reminders to them to complete the survey, and also people, they were eager to share all their feedbacks through this survey, because this was the new thing on the floor. And the last one is to assess the effective communication. We wanted to understand what is the best approach or their preference to receive information from us. And also we had one more free text question here. So all those that you see in the bold question here, these are the free text ones. And I think those free text questions really helped us to give more insights to their feedback. So the last question, which was what improvement they feel required in the current ways of working in cases and practices, really gave us a lot of ideas and also feedbacks and any improvement that they wanted us to implement. So I think this was the most important question that provided a lot of insight. So this is the set of questions, and now you're seeing the, Arvid, you can go to the next slide. The next slide on the result. Yes. So here
I am there, but it was paused. Is it okay now?
Okay. Yeah, it's okay now. Thank you. So here are some of the results. To conclude this result, what I can say is that people do understand the core concept of KCS, and they do see value through this methodology, and they can relate it to the business outcome. But the challenge that we had was the motivation level of the agent. And a point worth to note is that we conducted this survey before the self-service go live. So that probably could have also influenced this motivation level which was quite a low figure here. And also some of the pain areas that came to surface through this survey was that the expectation on the volume shift that was not happening due to the delay in the self-service. And we also had some challenges regarding the tool where the search function was quite or the search accuracy was quite poor, and because of that we also had a lot of challenges around the duplicate articles, and especially in the beginning of the adoption, when we adopted all our suppliers, high creation was observed, and that also means that we ended up with a high duplicate. So that is probably why we're seeing this motivation level being low, but otherwise I think that the methodology and people do see value and they could relate it to the business outcome, at least for us on our first survey result. So yes, Arvid, we can go to the next one. Here, okay, this one, well, I just wanted to share with you that people do want to hear more from us through communication emails and also newsletters, more than discussion forum meetings or other means. And through our newsletters, we do also share some of the people who are to be recognized for the month. And through communication emails, we send some tips and tricks. So I think that was appreciated. And on the below graph here, I wanted to show you that we used a odd number scale. So that cost us, or the result of a fair number of answers were also quite huge. So that's a tips for you. If you want additional insight to the neutral score, you can divide them by having an even numbered scale range. So that will give you if people are aligned more to the great or poor score. And then, yes, next slide, please. Thank you. And most importantly, after you send out the survey, you must assure them that their opinions are heard and that we are acting upon the feedback. So what we did was we sent out the survey response, and also we did provide some commitments, and we are keeping up to the commitment, making sure that the duplicates are removed, and also upon the self-service go live, we communicated to agents and assured them the volume shift that will eventually happen, and so kind of things. So most importantly, that you share the feedbacks and keep them engaged, and yes, let them know that the opinion is useful and matters to us, and that they are heard. Next slide. I have an example here where we to handle the motivation level, which was quite serious and came evident through the survey. So what we did was that we requested the KDs to step in to do some content health activity. So this was a bit of proactive approach, but that was so crucial at that point when the self-service was not available for us. So we defined a maintenance calendar to have the KDs to have a one-to-one session with us to discuss what are the activities they're executing for their product. And how we define this maintenance calendar is by the product's Pareto chart, where the more volume is, the more frequently you want to talk to the KD. So that will safeguard the discipline of execution for the respective KDs. Because our KDs are in the supplier community, so it was important for us to govern them that they are doing their work besides their day-to-day operational activities, because KDs are not full-times. So I have also listed some example of one-to-one discussion that is for you to read if you want to take some ideas from there. So I will skip that. Next one, Arvid. Yeah. So some lesson learned is that we feel that the awareness and motivation among the agents improved as we keep them more engaged and market KCS time to time and tell them that how they are bringing value. And then it's also provided an opportunity to fix misunderstanding. For example, they were saying that the search is not working. We have too many duplicates, but it only required us to send them a tips or an email saying that you can perform an advanced search. That was not or that was not known for many agents. So that kind of tips and tricks was so useful for us to fix their misunderstanding and to regain the buy-in. And since then, we decided to sustain the two-way feedback loop. We continuously share with them the relevant metrics and information, and also to let them know how their contribution brings value. And I also sharing some tips here. You may want to decide on your scale range when you want to send some survey, and then allow room for free text questions, because that will really give you meaningful insights, and also some ideas can surprise us. Then, most importantly, assure the audience that their opinion matters, because you might want to resend the survey, and we are also planning to send one more now that the self-service has gone live somewhere in Q2. So, to go back to them and make them to provide honest feedback, you must make sure that our earlier commitments are met, and also that let them feel comfortable of sharing the feedback. And finally, the audience is that you might also want to consider for different audience, you can have different sets of questions, because, for example, the coaches or the publishers, you might want to drill down further on certain aspect of their role's contribution. So that also is a lesson learned for us, because previously we sent a general survey to everyone, but definitely in the next quarter we are aiming for a survey by role. Yeah, that's all from me, Arvid. We can go for questions.
Okay, thank you, Renuka, and thank you, Arvid. I think the focus that Ericsson put on the adoption of KCS over the last 24 months shows the benefits are the results, I guess, they're seeing in terms of linking rates and linking accuracy, and the creation of knowledge, and has been excellent. I think the communications focus has been part of that success recipe, part of that recipe for success. So one question from Patrick. I'd like to know more about what is in their communication to employees on the impact they're having. Can Arvid or Renuka, can you talk a little bit about how you help the support agents understand the benefit or the impact of their contribution?
With employees, do you mean Ericsson employees or the support personnel?
I think the support personnel, the people actually doing the work, which are your outsourced partners, your suppliers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have in our main package, when we do the training, we explain why we are doing this. We want to, we highlight the employee benefits in that sense that because the incident mix in Ericsson has traditionally been quite repetitive, so to say. I mean, many of the questions has been of repetitive character. So we have said that, for example, that when we move content closer to the end users and also use the KCS statistics for getting the KCS statistics, so we can prevent these common issues, then they will have a more variety of troubleshooting that they are doing. But of course, also we have these common values between Ericsson and also internal and external suppliers, where we have committed to work towards the same goals. So we are very transparent towards the support engineers why we are doing this. KCS enables us to have an efficient, up-to-date self-service, and that is important for us to make room in the support organization to also work more with the development in our IT environment, because we want to continuously evolve and not spend the same time on all these repetitive issues that end users are facing.
Okay, thank you. So next is, we need to move along because we have two more presenters. Next is Monique from Dell, who's going to talk about their experience. And Monique, I'm making you the presenter now. And if you can share your screen and unmute yourself, I will unmute you. So you're unmuted and you should be able to see your screen. Yep.
Let's switch this here. Okay.
That looks good.
Okay. Just a second. I'm missing something. There you go. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me and listening to what I have to say about our experience with understanding and buy-in. The things that we're going to cover, that I'm going to talk about today, are the objection of the survey and the target audience, the mechanics of it, what we learned, and we'll also share the questions that we used, actions that we took are going to take as a result of our findings, and recommendations to others who might be looking to understand buy-in. This is something that we just recently completed, or we're in the middle of completing. We had initially done a support agent survey about a year ago to help assess their understanding of KCS and why we do it, to help identify things that we should put in our refresher training. And so after a recent consortium meeting back in October, we had this discussion around managers, middle management, and the front line and their understanding. So we thought, hey, well, we should survey them also. So that's what we ended up doing. So
Monique, sorry,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but people are having trouble hearing you. If you can you make your microphone closer, or maybe
okay.
Speak louder? Sorry.
How's
Thanks.
that? Is that better? Is that better, Greg?
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, great. So to start with, I'll give you some background. Dell Software is made up of several acquisitions. One company was doing KCS for quite some time, and for the others, KCS was new to them. Most had some sort of knowledge management program in use, but part of the buy-in was making sure that they know the difference between KCS and traditional knowledge management programs. So we do quarterly health reviews with each of the portfolios, and as a result, we saw some teams had room for improvement. That, along with just general conversations with some of the managers during those quarterly reviews, really indicated that some of the areas for improvement centered around the front line and middle management. So as expected, there were larger opportunities in the newer consolidations. So our objective was to assess KCS understanding and buy-in of the support managers and directors. And since each portfolio was at different levels of maturity, we decided to send this KCS survey out in phases. And so we started with the most mature org, since they had been doing it for some time, and we're more likely to have some easy wins. Our thought was that using a survey, we'd have some data that would support our efforts for improvement, and we can possibly add some of those to our roadmap for this coming year. So we created questions and entered them into SurveyMonkey, and then we sent out a communication. This is an example of the email that we sent out, asking for 100% participation by a certain date. We gave them about a week and a half. And then we just wanted to let them know that we were really looking for opportunities to add to the roadmap and improve our support delivery success. So these are the 8 questions that we used. I won't go over each of them, but they're here for your reference if you want to take a look at them later. But on this next slide, I'm going to cover the ones that I felt were most beneficial. So the findings. The first org that we surveyed, the one with the experience, they had some room for growth, and so we did ask for names on the survey, and it allowed us to identify which managers needed further training or education. And there were about 3 of 21 responders that I felt could benefit from additional training. Of those, really only one was a surprise, because I think you kind of always know which managers really aren't on board by some of their comments or by their team's performance. So this is the great thing, having this information in a formal manner, it really gives us the support we need for action items. And so the next org that we surveyed is the one that's fairly new to KCS. They'd been doing knowledge engineering, so they'd been having their champions, write content when it was needed, and so delay, no one was capturing, is really a big change for them. So it was obvious to our team that the lack of adoption after they had the initial training really had a lot to do with the managers and the leadership within that portfolio. And we were even able to see a difference between specific office locations. Because we suspected that a majority of the answers would show a lack of understanding and buy-in, we didn't ask for names on that second survey for the newer org. In the middle square, I have the questions that I felt were most useful. Question 3 was, who should primarily be responsible for the engineers' adherence to KCS processes? This one was really to find proof of some things that we kind of assumed were happening, and it was really confirmed by their answers. About 47% really answered the way we wanted them to answer. Though there are many individuals and roles within the organization that can aid and contribute to the success of the agent, we felt that it was ultimately part of the manager's duties and to be responsible for ensuring that the agent adhered to or made progress in KCS. So just as they're responsible as for the performance of their team in regards to other KPIs. And question 4, if you had an option to stop doing activities or roles related to KCS in order to concentrate on support deliveries, TTRs, SLAs, for example, which of those activities or roles would you choose? So if we go back to this one here, I mean, it was things like article capture creation, champion duties, KDE activities, AQI and linking accuracy, or none. Of those that responded, 21, only 9 out of them said none, all are important, and that was really the answer that we were looking for. And so lastly, the open box comment. This was very, very helpful, especially for the survey where we asked for names, because a couple of comments were centered around not having time to do KCS because the teams were running lean or too busy, is how they put it. And since we have the names of the managers, we were able to go back and look at the percentage headcount capacity. Those teams were at 100% or higher. So it really does remove that as a possible reason for them, really not participating as much as some of the other teams. Lastly, our action items as a result. Since we're just wrapping up both surveys, we'll be presenting the results to our VP along with recommended action items, which include having some of those managers that we identified attend a KCS leadership workshop, asking the leadership team, the VP and the directors, to regularly communicate that KCS practices are just as important as other support practices and should not be sacrificed in order to meet other SLAs or KPIs, which are often the focus in a lot of their discussions and communications. And so, communicating, in our monthly KCS newsletter and continuing to look for other opportunities, are things that we'll continue to do. And lastly, some lessons learned. For teams where most managers have bought in, asking for names may be worthwhile. However, it may not result in candid answers. They may just be answering the way you want them to answer. But again, usually you know which managers are, kind of need that little bit of education. For teams that are struggling or they're new to KCS, names are not as important because they're all kind of, in the same place. And so it also might, be more of a if they don't have to provide their name, they might be more likely to provide candid answers. And third, always add an open box comment. That open box comment really does allow for finding hidden gems of data and information like, wow, I didn't know they thought that, right? And so it's really, you know, I think a good piece of information to have is to just let them put in there what they think or what they feel. And lastly, keep it short, less than 10 questions. For newly adopting teams like the one I told you they're just fairly new to KCS, repeating that survey later on after we do this continual education and communication, we can then use that to kind of assess their growth. And that's it. Any questions?
Great. Thanks, Monique.
Sure.
Anyone have any questions for Monique? I think that the focus on the managers is a growing part of the conversation within the KCS success discussions, and focusing on understanding their understanding, I think, is can have long-term benefits. Okay. Thank you, Monique. Next is HP Enterprise, or Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, I should say. And Ash will be presenting. And I'm going to manage the screen changes here. So, Ash, if you're ready.
So Greg, thank you very much for inviting me, Greg, and so also Kelly, thank you a lot. I also thank people who have joined this call. Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on your time zones. And thank you for bearing with me for the next 15 minutes. The idea was for measuring knowledge sharing effectiveness. What we wanted was to see how effective we are in terms of communication to our engineers, to our first level managers, to our senior managers, to the vice presidents, to the senior vice presidents. So in terms of sharing effectiveness, this is all-rounded sharing effectiveness, not just at an engineer level, but even at a higher ups. So Greg, over to next slide. So what we wanted to do is that we wanted to look at an outsider view in terms of how good we are in terms of communicating the effectiveness of KCS, how good we are in terms of perception perspective from our people perspective, in terms of process, in terms of technology, in terms of culture, in terms of what their interpretations or perceptions about our people and leaderships. And this also plays a key role, because if we talk to the engineers, you get one perspective. If we talk to the first level managers, a different perspective. If we talk to the senior management, absolutely different perspective. So it made a lot of sense to get a third party, which is clever here, to do a survey for us, and that can give us an outsider view. Both it will help us to fix issues wherever, to highlight issues at an engineer level, as well as we could use the same assessment to the senior management, stating that, look, this is what we are doing well, this is what we are not doing well, and these are the things to focus. So primarily I will focus on those 4 points. Now the questions, they have 14 questions which went to for a survey. Greg, next slide, please. So they had 14 questions. This is the demographics. We sent it to 4,515 engineers plus first level managers, and out of which we had around 977 responses. So 21% response rate is considered to be a very good response rate, and that is across various countries, various regions, various product divisions, and at various levels, whether it is the first level engineers, whether it is the competency center engineers, the mission critical engineers, the first level managers. So it gives you an overall view for those 14 questions. These 14 questions were clever. These are also there in their is supposed to be there in their website, so anybody can actually go in and do a survey. But what you may not get, which is their proprietary, is how they analyze those 14 questions and they come out with their analysis. So that's the proprietary, and we wanted to get a feeling of that proprietary. Next slide, Greg. So in terms of executive summary, two key highlights what they came out with. One, from a culture perspective, they felt that the team has a strong HP culture. And somebody outsider telling the senior management, it helps us a lot. And we went back to the people also, and we told our people, look, this is what an outsider has to say, that we have a strong HP culture, we have a strong KCS knowledge sharing program. So this motivates the engineer levels also. They did have a lot of recommendations, and we did forward even those recommendations to the right people, to the right managers, to the right regions, to the right product division. Their key point, what they came out was the last point, was while culture was seen as very positive, they did not feel it promoted individual learning. So that is what actually I'm talking from an improvement perspective they came out with this one. In terms of recognition program, they felt HP being a large organization, the HP is doing extremely well in terms of reward and recognition programs, and these are all non-monetary programs. But so people get various recognition, and this is what the people's perception is. But still, we needed to address what's in it for me. Greg, next slide. So if I go to the process, if I go below the three questions you see at the bottom, below the benchmark, you will see three questions. One was leadership invests as many resources in training and developing the team as in the knowledge tool. The second question was leadership clearly communicates the importance of knowledge and learning. Knowledge sharing is embedded into how we do our work. Basis these three questions, they have come out with the scores basis what the people have surveyed. Now, having given the scores, analyzing, so they came out with their findings. I'm not highlighting the ones where they said that we are doing well. I'm more highlighting purely from a recommended next steps perspective. They talked about creating a value network analysis, like creating knowledge flow maps. That was one. Then they also talked about modifying KCS to meet some of the needs, and we had intelligent swarming implemented for storage, which they wanted us to implement across. So these were the three key recommendations from Clever. Next slide. Next slide is on people and leadership perspective. There were 4 questions. One was leadership promotes the importance of learning. 3.41 is the score. Similarly, employees routinely recommend to their professional colleagues that HP is a good place to work. I saw, I think, Eriksson or Dell, I saw even the similar question, which is excellent. Customers routinely recommend our company's products or services to others, and we have easy access to lessons learned by others in the organizations. With these questions, they came out with the scores, and then they came out with the key findings. In terms of next steps, what they said is, how can we simplify and align measures? Let me tell you, we have lots and lots of measures. We had, in fact, lots and lots of measures for our engineers. Now, when somebody from an outsider comes and does an assessment and tells us that you have too many measures for an engineer, it makes much easier for us to reduce those and make it same, and how we can align them to the organizational measures, how we can align them to the leadership goals, and we did exactly that. We also bridge the gap between the corporate that is intent and the day-to-day work of frontline team managers and managers. So there was earlier, there was not really much of gaps, which I talked about in terms of bridging the or aligning the measures. And last but not the least, we looked for opportunities for breakthroughs. This is primarily some of the green belt projects, where as well as some black belt projects, where we looked at some of the easy wins we could do to show some savings, and that also enabled us a lot of success. Technology. From a technology point of view, there were 2 questions. One is the technology we have. makes it easy to share information within the company. And the second one is most people would agree that we need to invest in knowledge sharing processes before purchasing technology. Those were the two questions. Bottom line, they talked about introducing concepts of knowledge sharing practices, make it more aware, means create that awareness a lot, keep coaching, keep recognizing and rewarding systems, continue with the regular communications, reinforce the concept. So that's all they talked about. Next, Greg, next slide, please. Then the last piece they came out, they talked about was the culture. From a culture, there were 5 questions. One was, we have a process for using and acting on information in our knowledge base. We invest as much time in fixing the root causes of the fires as we do in fighting fires. The third one was, we have a culture that values collaboration more than command and control. Fourth, we reward people who solve problems in a scalable way rather than individuals who perform heroics over and over. It is easy to get help from anyone in any department. So recommendation of the next steps were reinforce the connection between the strong culture and the importance of individual learning, and do it in simple ways. So that's all those 4 questions were, and those were the recommendations. It came in from Clever. And what they also did is they made a presentation to we made sure that they made a presentation to the senior most management, including the senior vice president, and this is what they came out with the 4 quadrants: all talk, reality check, self-aware, and enlightened. And they found that 73% is enlightened. The reality check is 16%. So how we can move those reality check to enlightened? All talk was 2.66%. So the understanding was that implementing all of this, how we can move more and more of this reality check to enlightened. Next slide, Greg. So having done all of that, we formed a team, and we came out with a program for KM newsletters, sharing various issues, the various programs, the KM roadshows at various call centers. We had the brown bag sessions, the KM sessions for the new hires. Although we had a onboarding program, it's already there, but we had a separate KM sessions for new hires. And last but not the least, we created a KM Awareness Week. And all of this, we kept highlighting not just to the engineers, but also we kept sending it to the senior management. And I'll tell you how it helped us. Because when the senior management, like senior vice presidents, they went to a call center, they asked the engineer, "Bye, are you going through those newsletters? Did you see what are the new modifications are expected, or how you are handling things, how you are collaborating, and so on and so forth?" 1 or 2 questions, the message flows. The process becomes much easier. So with that, my communication effectiveness, this one I completed. My last slide, Greg. There is, I think, one. Yeah. So we have one. Actually, this is the highest award winner from Hewlett-Packard, a President's Quality Award for 2015. This was just announced 10 days back. In the company, there are only 6 projects are selected, and knowledge management is one of the projects selected. I must thank Greg for this. I must thank Phil Verghese for Clever, who did an excellent job for us in terms of this one, both for engineers, for managers, as well as for the senior management. So thank you, Greg. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ash, and congratulations on the President's Award. That's a great accomplishment and great recognition for the team. We had, let's see, we have a couple questions in the chat. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly when they came in. So Renuka was asking, how do you distinguish the scope of problem management versus KCS, KM, and fixing root cause?
Just repeat the question again. Sorry, sorry.
So how do you distinguish the scope of problem management versus KCS or knowledge management in fixing root cause? I'm not, Renuka, are you?
Yeah, I can just ask, maybe it's on a communication level. How do you communicate? Because fixing root cause, then people or agents might say it's something needs to be done through the problem management. So you gave an example that the fixed root cause and also helped you with quick wins and your Six Sigma projects. So just wanted to know, how did you balance the communication between the problem scope and KCS scope?
Okay, excellent question, Renuka. So what we did is, one is you have your KCS practices. The other side, you have your Lean Sigma projects. A combination of these two, a cocktail of these two actually helps you to fix issues. So what we do is we come out with the fishbone diagram, we find out what are the key issues. It could be content awareness or content quality or whatever the root causes are. We solve those over a period of 3 months, 4 months. It would need agent's help. We run it as a program. It could be a KM program. It could be an operations program. Work with the managers. We don't have a separate something called problem management team. We do not have. Our structure is very simple. It's all operations engineers, and we have a KM team. So KM team is completely empowered to work with the operations team and drive changes, drive process changes as well.
Understood. Thank you so much. Very good insight.
So we're in the process of doing writing a case study about HP's use of Six Sigma as part of their Evolve loop, which I think also intersects with the ITIL problem management processes. There are a number of tools and techniques I think that organizations are using with great success to evaluate patterns and trends, identify issues for root cause analysis and corrective actions. And Six Sigma seems to be one that HP certainly has had great success with. So there's a case study coming out about that shortly. Yeah. So Patrick had a question. How did the surveys align with the reality of your participation? Do you see broad-based knowledge capture, improvement, and reuse? And Patrick, was that for Ash or was that for Monique, or
let me answer.
Okay.
Let me answer this question. This was a third-party survey, and they captured purely the perceptions of the engineers. And in reality, when we spoke to the engineers or when we spoke to the managers, it matched exactly. So it really reflected. Reflected what the engineers or what the first level managers thought of in terms of their thinking about using knowledge, in terms of sharing knowledge, in terms of having a KM culture. Because if you look at the participation of the survey, 21% is a great sample size, and it is all across. The second part is, while implementing some of those programs, we got many feedback. No, I don't think this will work. Why don't you try this? Or why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? There's a lot of energy in the system. And if there is a focus from senior management, it helps further even. People open up more.
Okay, thank you. So the follow-up question from Patrick is, I think quite often we see a disconnect between what people say and what they do, and I think that's, in my mind, that's part of why the comparison of capture rates, capture loss, linking accuracy, all of what we're going to introduce in version 6, KCS version 6, all of the process integration indicators, that is, are people following the workflow, compared to the survey results, I think can produce some interesting insights into if there is a disconnect between what people are doing and what people are saying. The AQI also plays into that as well. So I think the surveys, assessing people's buy-in and understanding in combination with some of the metrics can really help you identify points of focus or points of corrective action, either with the contents content standard understanding or workflow understanding.
Greg, I had only one more point. Greg, I had only one more point to add. Right metrics will drive right behavior. Wrong metrics will drive wrong behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions from folks on the phone? So we had, you may hear from your peers that there were people who signed up who could not get into the call. Unfortunately, we had we were not aware of a limit on this particular GoToMeeting session of 26 people. So we have recorded it, and we will make the recording available. I think we had some 70 people register, which usually means 35 or so on the phone. But we couldn't correct it without stopping the session and starting over, which we did not want to do. And since we were recording it, we thought we'd send that along to everybody who registered. So if you hear from any of your peers, we apologize that some people probably couldn't get in. And in future web sessions, we'll make sure we have a higher limit on the number of attendees. This is perhaps one of our most popular web sessions. So thank you. Yeah,
sorry, Greg, we do have one more question from Mary Jo, who was curious about in the questionnaires to managers, did the companies find any difference in answers between the software teams and the hardware teams? So I think at Dell, maybe it was just the software team. I don't know if other people had other experience.
So let me answer that. For HP, you have all the three teams. You have hardware, you have software, you have networking, all the three teams. But whatever responses we got across, whether it is engineers or it is mission critical engineers, the responses are more or less universal. More or less universal, more or less the same.
Okay. Monique, were the audience you were surveying, was that mostly Dell software, or is that only Dell software?
Yeah, it was only Dell software. As far as I know, hardware does not do KCS. They do traditional CAM.
Oh, okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for joining, and for members, the presentations will be in the wiki, and we will send out a link to the recording to all those who registered. So thanks for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day or your evening, as the case may be, and we'll adjourn. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.